So you're driving your Nissan, everything's fine. And then, nothing. It feels like all the power just vanished. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. You've probably run into the dreaded P1778 trouble code. And today, we're going to break down exactly what that means and, more importantly, what you can actually do about it.
Oh man, it's such a sinking feeling, isn't it? You know the scene. The light turns green, you step on the gas, and the car just doesn't go. The engine might be revving its heart out, but you're just creeping forward. You're pushing that pedal to the floor, but the power, it's just gone. And trust me, you are definitely not the first person to experience this. Mechanics see this kind of thing all the time. I love this quote from one technician online. He just nailed it. You go to step on the gas, and the vehicle just won't go. It's just slowly moving. That feeling, that sluggish, totally unresponsive acceleration, that is the classic textbook sign that your car's computer has thrown a P1778 code.
Okay, so what is your car even trying to tell you with this code? Well, think of it this way. The P1778 code is a message from the transmission's brain. It's called the Transmission Control Module, or TCM. And that brain has spotted a problem with a little part called the step motor. This tiny motor has a huge job. It's what smoothly changes the gear ratios in your CVT transmission. And right now, the computer is telling you, hey, this thing is not working right.
Now, besides that awful sluggish feeling, you might notice some other weird stuff happening. The car might go into what's called limp mode to protect itself, which basically feels like you're stuck in one gear. Or you might get some really erratic, jerky shifting. Maybe you see the engine RPMs just soaring, but your speed isn't budging. And of course, the whole time you've got that lovely check engine light just staring you in the face.
All right, so to really get what's going on, we need to do a little detective work. Let's, metaphorically pop the hood and dive inside the transmission to find the real culprit here.
Okay, so here's the deal. Your Nissan has a continuously variable transmission, a CVT. It doesn't have a bunch of separate gears like an old-school automatic. Instead, it's got this clever system of pulleys and a belt. And that step motor we were talking about? That's the small but absolutely critical part that tells those pulleys what to do, creating those smooth, seamless gear ratio changes. So when that part fails, well, the whole transmission basically throws its hands up and has no idea what to do. And that's when you lose all your power.
Now, this is maybe the most important part of this whole thing. The P1778 code tells you the step motor has a problem, right? But what it doesn't tell you is why it has a problem. And just blindly replacing that motor without figuring out the why can be a massive, expensive mistake. We've got to play detective and find the root cause.
So let's look at the usual suspects. The number one cause, by a long shot, is contaminated transmission fluid. What happens is, over time, tiny little metal shavings from normal wear and tear start floating around in the fluid. They clog up the delicate parts, and boom, the step motor fails. Now sure, the motor itself can just burn out. That happens, but more often than not, it's just the first domino to fall. The real question is, where are those metal shavings coming from?
And see, figuring out that root cause is everything, because it brings you to this huge fork in the road for the repair. And the path you take, well, it all comes down to getting the diagnosis right from the start. And check this out. This really shows you what's at stake. On one path, you're looking at replacing just the step motor. That's what, a $30 or $40 part? No big deal. But on the other path, if there's deeper damage inside, you could be looking at replacing the entire transmission. We're talking a repair that can easily cost $2,000, $3,000, even $4,000. The difference is just staggering.
This is exactly why just throwing a new motor in there without asking questions is such a huge gamble. Think about it. If your transmission is slowly grinding itself to bits and filling the fluid with metal shavings, that brand new $40 step motor you just installed, it's just going to get clogged up and fail again in a few weeks. It's the diagnosis. That's the thing that separates a cheap fix from a catastrophically expensive one.
Okay, so what does a good diagnosis actually involve? It's a step-by-step process. You always start with the fluid. A good mechanic will pull the dipstick and look at the level, the color, but most importantly, they're looking for that telltale metallic glitter in the fluid. That glitter is ground-up metal, and it's your biggest red flag. After that, they'll check the wiring for any obvious damage, test the electrical components, and if they're still not sure, they'll have to drop the transmission pan to get a real look inside.
All right, now I know some of you out there are thinking, hey, I can do this myself and save a ton of money. And I get it. But before you even think about picking up a single wrench, there are a couple of super critical things you need to know. And listen to this advice from a mechanic because it's pure gold. When you take off the valve body to access that step motor, you're going to see a whole bunch of bolts, and they might all look identical, but they're not. They can be slightly different lengths. You have to keep them organized, label them, do whatever it takes to make sure every single bolt goes back into the exact same hole it came out of. Get this wrong and you could do some serious damage.
And here's another pro tip, and this one could save you from the nightmare of doing the whole job twice. That step motor has to connect to a tiny little control lever inside. When you put it all back together, that lever has to be set perfectly. If it's even a little bit off, the car just won't shift right. And guess what? You'll have to tear the whole thing apart and start all over again.
So when it all comes down to it, that P1778 code makes you ask one really important question. Is this cheap little part the actual disease, or is it just the first symptom of a much bigger, much more expensive problem lurking inside your transmission? Figuring out the right answer to that question, that's the only way to get your Nissan fixed right and back on the road for good.